Welcome back to Organist Launchpad. My name is Mark McDonald, and this is part 2 of the fundamentals of Anglican service playing. Let's talk about organ registration. So to assist me in talking about organ registration, I'm sitting here at the console of the organ at Saint-Jean-Baptiste Church in Montreal. And this organ, which was built in 1915, is a wonderful cassavant instrument. It's not exactly like an English cathedral organ, but it will give us some of the sound colors that we're looking for. One of the hallmarks of an English cathedral organ is that almost all of the divisions are enclosed. The only two divisions that do not have expressive enclosures are the grate and the pedal. Everything else are inside boxes that we can control with swell pedals. In regards to the swell pedal, the default for the swell box should be closed, not open. That's because it allows us the greatest dynamic control. This actually is not my own idea. It comes from Sidney Nicholson's books, Choirs and Places Where They Sing. The idea is that if you have a closed swell box, you have control over your accompaniment. And you use the swell box expression to enhance crescendos, diminuendos, swells in the choir, etc. The two primary manuals that we'll use the most in the English cathedral repertoire are the swell and the grate. Both of these are where we find most of our accompaniment colors. We'll also talk a little bit about the choir and solo divisions. The choir can be used for soft accompaniments and solo colors, and the solo, obviously by its name, is meant for large solo registrations or various types of colors. Now let's talk about registration assistance at the organ. There are two primary ways on an English organ that we change the registrations, apart from just pulling out the stops ourselves. There are general pistons, which control multiple divisions of the organ at once, and there are divisional pistons, which control just one manual division at a time. Let's look at how we set up divisional pistons in order to create accompaniments. Let's start with the swell divisionals. On a given organ, there might be as many as 8 divisional pistons on each manual. In the case of this organ here at Saint-Jean-Baptiste, we have 6. And so the way that I have divided my divisional pistons up is to create a crescendo, starting from the lowest to the highest number. So number 1 are the celestes. Number 2, 8-foots. Number 3, 8-foots and 4-foots foundations. Number 4, the foundations of 8 and 4 with the oboe. Number 5, the 2-foot and the 16-foot reed. And finally, number 6, the full swell. Now I have a crescendo that starts with the softest registrations and goes to the loudest. We use this same crescendo concept when we talk about the pistons for the grate organ. In this case, it's an unenclosed division, but the principles are the same. We start soft and we go loud. So here are the 6 pistons that I've set up on this organ. In this case, we have just a single 8-foot Borden. Number 2 is the Borden with the small principal. In this case, on this organ, it's called a solitional, but you might imagine on an English organ that it might be the 2nd diapason or the 3rd diapason. On the 3rd piston, we have the large diapason. On the 4th piston, we add the 4-foot octave. On the 5th, we add the 2-foot, so now we have a full chorus of principals. And then on the final piston, we add basically everything else. In this case, the 16-foot principal and the mixture. On an English organ, this might also be the point where we add an 8-foot or 16-foot or 4-foot reeds into the chorus. Closely related to the great divisionals are the pedal divisionals. And in fact, on many English organs, and actually many organs that we find in Canada as well, you can actually couple the great divisionals to the pedal divisionals so that when you select great number 1, you also get pedal number 1. In this case, I've set up my pedal divisionals to match my great divisionals. So on number 1, where I have the Borden in the great, I have a Borden 16 in the pedal. For number 2, which is the soft 8-foots, we now add an additional 8-foot in the pedal. Number 3, we add yet another 8-foot in the pedal. Number 4, another 16-foot, the 16-foot violon, in this case, in the pedal. For number 5, we add the big open diapason 16-foot in the pedal. And then finally, on 6, where we have the full great organ, we also then have a 16-foot reed in the pedal. Finally, let's turn to the other 2 expressive divisions that one finds on a typical English organ, the choir division and the solo division. In these cases, in my opinion, I still like to have a crescendo, at least on the choir, for the first few stages of the divisionals, but I often set solo registrations on some of the other ones. On this organ here, I've decided to create a crescendo on the choir, starting with just a single 8-foot, followed by 8-foot and 4-foot flutes, and then followed by the addition of the principals. Then we add a principal 4, and finally, the 2-foot flute. You can accompany on the swell and have a solo on the choir. The solo division is also set up mostly with solo colors in mind. On this organ, it's actually divided between 2 floating divisions, solo and bombard. So these pistons don't quite line up, but I've chosen a couple of different sounds. For example, here is a 8-foot flute. Here's an 8-foot string. Here's an 8-foot principal. And here is the 8-foot tuba. The tuba stop, or in this case, the bombard trumpet, as it is at Saint Jean-Baptiste, is often used in passages to solo out an important melody, particularly in hymns, in the tenor or in the soprano. We'll get to that in just a minute. There's one other important aspect of organ registration that's commonly found on English organs, and those are coupler pistons. One of the most useful coupler pistons, which is usually a toe stud, meaning that you press it with your foot rather than your finger, is the great to pedal toe stud. And this is used very often in English accompaniment when we're going between the great and the swell divisions while we're accompanying. We want to take that great to pedal coupler off easily and quickly. The key takeaway to all of this is that these registration assistants are the main way that we register on an English organ. It means that rather than using necessarily a whole list of sequenced pistons, we will often do most of our accompanying with only divisional pistons and coupler pistons. Thanks for watching this video on organ registrations in the Anglican tradition. Join me next time on Organist Launchpad as we delve into hymn playing.